Hello, Deacon Eric here. Well, before I get going, just tell you what I'm smoking. I got some new stuff here. Got some Eric Stockeby, 4th generation, 1882 Founder's Blend. So it's a nice English with some dark fire in it. Pretty good. This is my first 4th generation or Eric Stockeby blend I've ever tried. Pretty tasty, so give it a try. I don't have any Eric Stockeby pipes. Pretty sure he's a pipe maker. 4th gen makes pipes as well. A little breezy out this morning as I'm recording, but we'll just see what happens. Well, what I want to talk about today is the Odyssey. I finally saw it. Give you my thoughts on it for whatever it's worth. So, the Odyssey by Christopher Nolan, and I'm genuinely a Christopher Nolan fan, right? The Batman movies, Inception, Interstellar, all those, I like those movies. I like his movies for the most part, but none has been so controversial as the Odyssey. And it's a big task. There's a reason Hollywood hasn't made the Odyssey. It's a mythical tale, and a myth is not just a story. It's a story that is at the root of a civilization, right? Every civilization, every culture has a myth. And myth has elements to it and symbols to it that ground the culture. And so, in that sense, the Bible is the myth of Christianity. We believe that it's true. And so, because these other myths, like the Odyssey, are fictional stories that may have truth to them, may be based on true things. Probably there might have been a city that we call Troy, right? There were Greeks. There may have been a guy like Odysseus. There may have been great men like Achilles or Hercules, or strong men who were probably guys we wouldn't like in our culture today, maybe. But we know that there's elements of the Odyssey that are fictional. But that doesn't mean it's any less a myth. And that's why we think myth means fiction. And that's not what myth means. Myth is a story, right? America has a myth based on real history. Now, there might be mythical tales made up, right? It's a mix. It's kind of sometimes hard to distinguish. But either way, a culture should take their story and they should tell it. They should tell the story. And so the Greeks, Homer was telling the story. And we don't know how much of it was just passed on to him and he was telling it. Right? He was a bard, and then he wrote it down later. But first, he just told it. But the movie. Is the movie a faithful adaptation of the story by Homer? In some points, yes. And many points, no. So, I had mixed feelings about the movie. Just as a piece of entertainment, a story itself, it was so-so. But, and I've listened to all the different reviews of people that I give a rip about their opinion. And I also listened to the entire Odyssey and the Iliad on audiobook, Penguin Audiobooks. The Odyssey, it's got Ian McKellen, Gandalf from Lord of the Rings movies, telling the Odyssey, the Fagel translation, and it's really good. It's awesome. And so, first and foremost, I'm glad that a big budget movie about the Odyssey was made. Why? Because everybody's talking about it. It's in the conversation. Maybe more people will read the source material. I want to go on. I want to read or listen to the Aeneid, and I even want to finally kind of dig into Dante, because there's elements there. And from people that know, they say that the reason it's different than the original Homer Odyssey is because Nolan took some of those elements into it, like the ending is apparently from the Odyssey. And so, just a warning too, I guess I should say, there might be some spoilers in this if you haven't seen it yet and you want to see it. But I wouldn't really worry too much about spoilers with the Odyssey, because, well, it was written thousands of years ago, and so you've had a chance to read it. The story's out there, right? So it kind of goes on the basic storyline, which is good. So the Odyssey, Nolan's Odyssey, it does follow the basic storyline. I'll just say I didn't enjoy the movie as much as Ben Shapiro enjoyed it, but I didn't hate it as much as Matt Walsh hated it. Or other people on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. If you want to hear the most interesting takes on it, I would listen to, if you're into Daily Wire, I would listen to Michael Knowles, maybe Andrew Clavin. Andrew Clavin and his son, who is a classicist, did a pretty good review on it. Probably the most interesting is Jonathan Peugeot, The Symbolic World, who, that's his whole thing, is symbols. He enjoyed it. He had another one recently, though, where one of his good friends, who's an Orthodox deacon, who had some valid critiques of it, who is also a classicist himself. And so go find the classicists. Classicists are people into the classic culture, which is Roman and pre-Roman Western culture. Those are the people listening. The people that can read it in Greek, not me. Maybe someday. I'm in seminary. I want to get into Koine Greek, ancient Greek. Maybe I'll be able to read it. That'd be fun. I'm not terribly worried about it. I more want to read the Bible in its original language at some point, or at least better. I don't know if I'll be any good at it. We'll find out. But the Odyssey, I'll just go into Peugeot's take and kind of Michael Knowles' take, is that what if all the woke elements of the Odyssey by Christopher Nolan, what if those were on purpose? And Nolan himself is being an Odysseus who created a Trojan horse for the woke left, for woke Hollywood, a movie that they would watch, while underneath and inside he still had the basic story, the classic story of the Odyssey inside. And he made a movie where Hollywood would eat it and swallow it and love it and enjoy it. But what they were really eating was classic understanding of husbands and wives, men and women, and the way of the world. And when you view it that way, it is a different movie. There is clearly something else going on, and it makes you think different about some of the casting choices. Because straight up, the casting choices, obviously, I hated it. Right? It's like, there's a guy on YouTube, Critical Drinker. He's like, it's like, hey, here's this brownie with some poop in it. It's just got a little bit of poop. Would you like it? Well, no, I wouldn't. But Hollywood would. They like a little of that junk in there. And so what if he kind of put it right out there, and they ate it hook, line, and sinker. Maybe. And then the hardest part for me was the writing, the dialogue. It really took me out of the story. But, right, think about the left, think about woke Hollywood. They talk like that. They would write like that. And it was kind of on the point for a reason. And, it was the dialogue was just a little too on the nose sometimes. But it got a message across, which was interesting, which I'll get into. But a few things. On the Ellen page, and I say Ellen because that's her name. She can change her name to Elliot, whatever. She can think she's a man. She's still got a double X chromosome, no matter what you chop off. And I feel sorry for her. I feel sad for her. And that may be the point. This was Jonathan Pajot's point, was that her character, there's no Achilles in Nolan's Odyssey at all. Which in the book of the Odyssey, Achilles only shows up in Hades. But Ellen Page's character is the one that shows up in Hades and has the conversation. But that whole storyline of she's playing this young man, this young boy who is taken instead of, so I'll go into it. In the beginning of the war, or before they go to war, before they go to Troy, they drew lots, right? These little sticks, short and long or whatever, of who was going. And this kind of young nobleman in Ithaca, he gets the lot, and he trades it with this other little pudgy, weak boy to say, take my place. Odysseus sees it, but to save face of the nobleman, he said it was the other way. He lied on behalf of this kid. But this kid this rich kid who lets the other boy take his place, he becomes the main antagonist. He becomes the main suitor for Penelope in, Robert Pattinson's character. And so that's kind of at the base of it. And so the people would say, oh, she's not in there very much. Well, she's kind of a key character, but that might be the point, is because it was a shameful thing. And if you think about it, it could be a commentary on us and our culture, that men have let the feminist agenda, we did not go to war. We quit fighting. And we let wickedness in. And it's gotten to such a point that our children are confused as who they are. And we let this false identity take over our kids. And it is shameful. And so it's on us. It's on the leaders, Odysseus, and it's on this other character who's the antagonist. It's on them. And that's one of the things that's the main thing that seems to trouble Odysseus. There's other things that trouble him, but actually what's deeply motivating him is what he did to this young boy in the movie, and he let him get killed. He tricked him to trick the Trojans with the Trojan horse, and he died for Odysseus's plan. And then he meets him in Hades, and he's confronted on it. But then he takes up the call to restore things, to avenge this young man. And so, but if things were done right, the young man wouldn't have been in the position he was in. And as men in our culture, we have let our sons and daughters be confused. We were passive, and shame on us. There's truth to that. So even just that if he made Hollywood swallow that it is shameful and sad that you are confusing these men and women. Now, did he do that on purpose? I don't know. But it's there either way. But basically, the whole movie has a kind of it talks about Zeus's law, but Nolan's version of Zeus's law is really the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now the thing is, in the movie, he kind of has it only one way. It's kind of the host and guests, and so it's a rule of hospitality, which was certainly a thing in ancient culture. But that goes both ways. You have to be a good guest and a good host. And so it doesn't totally work in the movie because Troy were not good guests, right? Paris takes Helen, so he's not being a good guest. So they violate this Zeus's law, or the golden rule, so to speak. And so in the movie, Odysseus is troubled that he upset the whole cosmic order of the universe, and it's basically destroying civilization. And there's this whole thing of the people of the sea are coming, and then it ends up it's Odysseus's adventures after Troy and him destroying things and the other Greeks destroying things along the way back home, that they're the people of the sea. And so really they're not the Greeks. It's before the Greeks, the Mycenaean culture. That is kind of the end of the Bronze Age. And the peoples of the sea, was it the Mycenaeans? Was it the Phoenicians? Was it what became the Philistines? There's different. That's a historical conversation between historians of who is the peoples of the sea, which is a thing from Egyptian history. And it is kind of the end of the Bronze Age, the beginning of the Iron Age. That's where the dialogue is messed up, because these characters are in the end of the Bronze Age mention that it's an age of bronze, which was ridiculous, anachronistic way of speaking. So there were things that didn't work. The casting, I don't really want to watch the movie again, right? It's a Nolan movie that was a spectacle. It's filmed well. I didn't feel, though, like I was in Greece. I felt like I was in a weird Scottish version. Nolan's, he loves that dark, broody kind of vision. Everything's dark and gray all the time, and there's kind of some horror elements in parts of it that I didn't. Some people kind of like some of that stuff. I didn't care for it, but I get it. And it had all the monsters, and it kind of didn't have. It had a god, but she could be a figment of his imagination, things like that. That's fine, whatever. But in the end, what happens is it's restored, the marriage bed is restored, and the son is elevated. So it's the return of the father. and the restoration of the marriage bed, and the lifting up of the child. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And that is the bedrock of civilization, especially Western civilization. And that's the Bible even. Bride and bridegroom. That's Christ. His return. He's going to return and going to restore all things, restore the kingdom, and raise the children up to reign alongside him. And so in essence, that part of it's good. I think it could have been a whole lot better movie if they'd played it straight, but movies don't have to do that. You don't have to take, you know, it's a 13-hour, if you read it straight, it's 13 hours. So really you need a 13-hour miniseries to make the Odyssey correctly, which would be awesome, right? Like a Mel Gibson type, just straight, tell the story, based on Fagel, I would say. That would be awesome. But that's not what this is. This is Nolan's vision. It's his artistic piece, and he's welcome to say what he wants with it, right? He's earned the right, by making good movies, to say what he wants to say. Did it work great? I don't know. It's not bombing, right? It's a spectacle. It's worth a watch, I would say. But there might be things that bother you. The Helen of Troy thing, that was bothersome. I don't know. I don't know the point of that. I kind of get the symbolism of having a woman play a man, and it's supposed to mess with you and confront your masculinity. The casting choice for Helen and her sister, I don't know. But I do know, so Jonathan Pajot points out that with Agamemnon and his wife, who his wife murdered him because he sacrificed their child, and then Menelaus and Helen's restored, which that's in the book, right? Which is not in the movie Troy, if you like the movie Troy, which is a better, more entertaining movie, loosely based on the source material. But those two marriages just don't or not work. They're dysfunctional, right? Menelaus and Helen, they're still married. Her face is marred now, which is interesting. So that is kind of a play on it. They show her from the side. This is the face that launched 1,000 ships. And then he turns her face and she's got this big scar. Right, and she's like dark African black, and in the story, it says that her skin was white, right? She could have had fair hair. That's one way to translate. So it's totally opposite of the Helen of the book. But is that Nolan kind of doing that on purpose as a Trojan horse? Because that's what Hollywood is crying out for. I don't know. There wasn't enough there to really get a beat on it. But they definitely are dysfunctional marriages. And then at the same time, there's this eventual return of the proper man and wife. But both in the movie and in the story, this is the part that gets me. Is that one of the things I like about the character of Odysseus, things he goes through, is that in that mythical story, he is confronting literally what confronts every man, right? Does he want to have adventure and stories and glory and riches, or does he want to be in marital bliss at home and build a kingdom at home? Right? I get confronted with that. Do I want to be? Because there's a part of me that's drawn out to the world to make a difference in the world in one way or another. Right? There's a temptation to seek glory and fame. Right? Which is in the book, In the story, Achilles says, that's what I did, don't do that. You need to live your life. But then he even says to Odysseus, but if you're offered eternal life, take it. And so later, Odysseus, he's offered eternal life with a goddess, right? Sexual bliss forevermore, in eternity. And he says, no, I want my wife who I built a kingdom with, who I built a life with. It's not just the bedroom, but it's the bridal chamber. There's something deeper going on between me and Penelope that your false eternal life cannot offer me. Your beauty, your outward beauty cannot offer what my wife has. But every man has to confront that. Every man has to confront his lust for power, glory, and just sexual appetite. All those things, they have to be confronted. And for some guys, it's a real journey, and it's years, it's decades to get there. Very interesting. And to me, that's the core. That's what speaks to me. Is that what is at the core of my life? Who am I? Right? Odysseus has to go on a journey to figure out who he is. And so the movie does it in a different way than the books a little bit, but he still does it. He still confronts his own temptations, confronts his own pain. He confronts the shame that's in his own life. And so that's very much in Odysseus and the stories and every version. There's, the Aeneid tells a different version of the Odyssey. Apparently Dante, he tells a different version of Odysseus. Odysseus is a mercurial character. He's a bit enigmatic. Could they have done a better job? Could they played? I don't know if Matt Damon could do it. I think Sean Bean was a better Odysseus, even in his little parts in Troy. That's what I would love to see. And he's still alive. He could play an old Odysseus. It'd be fun to see that. But whatever. The core of it was still there. I will say that in the movie. But what I suggest is read the book. Find a good audiobook version, not the Emily Wilson version, a Fagel or another, or a more truly poetic, epic version. Find those, and it'll be better. Get into the Odyssey. It's great. It's fun. It's a fun story because it'll speak to you. It should, especially men. I think women too. I think women would benefit from it because it's a story that does tell, like I said, the story of a man and his journey to true manhood. That's the core of it. What is true? What does it mean to be a man, to be a father and a husband? And a son, right? To be a royal son. Telemachus in the book is way better than Tom Holland in this movie. He was kind of weak and boring. Which is not what's in the book. The book's much better. And obviously, that's almost always true, but this it's certainly true. If Nolan's purpose was to create a Trojan horse, then I think he succeeded. He made Hollywood swallow the truth and enjoy it. I'll say it's a success. If he's trying to do, the adaptation of the Odyssey that I want, he failed. It's a beautiful tragedy. But whatever. That's his piece. I don't know. To be seen. So it's worth a watch. It's complicated. It's nuanced. It's not straightforward. But if it serves the purpose of us talking about the Odyssey, talking about civilization and culture, and talking about these things, these stupid things we're doing in our culture that are destroying us, and confronting those things and taking them out, which is kind of what's in the Odyssey, the movie and the book, then we should do that. So, you go see it, have your own thoughts about it, but it's worth a watch. That's my 2 cents on it. I don't know if I'll talk about it anymore. I might, because it's kind of, I've been digging into it, and it's been enjoyable. The digging into the Odyssey and the roots of our civilization and culture and philosophy and those things, that's been much more enjoyable than the movie. So, but the movie ignited that, even in me and in the conversation and the culture. So, sounds good. Maybe God's at work. Maybe it'll be a Trojan horse and it'll confront things in Hollywood, and people will be like, let's do stories right. I don't know. Well, that's all I got to say at the moment. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He shine His face upon you. May He give you His shalom.